July 1st, 2020, Hong Kongers woke up to a stark new reality following the implementation of a new and far-reaching national security law. The law gives Beijing sweeping powers not seen before since the territory's handover to China in July 1997. It now has the power to override the city's local laws and punish those involved in various crimes, including acts of secession, subversion, terrorism and collusion with foreign forces.
喺過去1年裏邊所出現嘅嗰啲恐怖嘅襲擊、汽油彈、攻佔啊，喺街道去毆打嗰啲司機等等，已經係凸顯咗恐怖主義嘅一啲操作。跟住咧就係外國勢力嘅干預啊，明顯有外國嘅力量咧係指導策劃香港嘅暴亂啊，咁所以咧呢4種嘅罪行咧係好急切需要去堵塞漏洞嘅。
Thousands of protesters took to the streets, venting their anger against Beijing amid concerns that the implementation of the security law would bring an end to their cherished freedom and civil liberties. 370 people were arrested, including 10 under the new law. Amidst the mood of defiance, the new law has also cast a pall of anxiety.
It is a fairly scary idea to have a national security unit, which is almost a para-police force, enforcing or implementing the national security law in Hong Kong.
Once they have started this dangerous precedent, they will continue to pass draconian laws in Beijing without even bothering to go through a legislative council which it controls. It's too much trouble.
We could summarize and recognize this as kind of speech crime when they could use the anti-subversion regulation to target a protester, journalists, dissidents, or ordinary citizens, which just means that we might be arrested, prosecuted, and locked up in prison, not in Hong Kong but in mainland China.
Fear and uncertainty about the city's future has sparked concerns about a new wave of immigration of residents from the city. And that comes more than 20 years after the first exodus, which took place during the city's handover to Chinese rule from Britain in 1997. So far, the UK has opened its doors to 3 million Hong Kong residents. Australia, Taiwan, Canada and New Zealand have also offered a similar path to permanent residency in the event of an exodus. Some 50,000 people have already emigrated in the last 2 quarters of 2019 alone.
Many people who can afford to leave are thinking now of leaving, making plans. And some of the people living here already got passports from Canada, Australia, and they could just pull out quickly, easily. And I'm afraid a lot of tycoons will go.
I'm sad that they make that decision. If they do make that decision, you know, I feel sorry for them. But then again, this is actually nothing new for Hong Kong. We've gone through crisis in the 60s, in the 80s, the early 80s, in the later 80s, even in the 90s. So we have that so-called brain drain many times. You look back, and after each crisis, you see a new rise for Hong Kong. So yes, we saw people leaving, but we also saw people coming in. So I'm actually quite confident that, you know, Hong Kong will survive. Right? People will always find opportunities to come back.
But bringing Hong Kong closer into China's fold has caused many Hong Kongers to worry about the city's future. Since the handover of 1997, Hong Kong has stood out from the rest of the mainland as a shining outpost of wealth, free speech, judicial independence, and rule of law. But increasingly, the uniqueness and economic importance of Hong Kong have begun to wane. Following the rise of China's other megacities like Shenzhen, Beijing, Shanghai, Chongqing and Guangzhou. With China's decision to gradually integrate Hong Kong into the mainland, will the city run the risk of losing its unique identity and economic importance?
I don't think that trust in Hong Kong will instantly evaporate. But that said, all international businesses potentially fall under the national security law simply because they're for it. So the risks of doing business in Hong Kong have definitely increased. International businesses can no longer rely on Hong Kong's legal system. They can't count on Hong Kong's legal system to be independent of Beijing.
If the legal system is gone, or if the legal system is no longer effective, there's very little difference between Hong Kong and Shenzhen or Hong Kong and Shanghai.
I think as Hong Kong's autonomy erodes, so does its uniqueness, as well as its values in the eyes of many people, particularly in international businesses.
I'm a supporter of the new national security law because I believe that this will allow us to more effectively and possibly more surgically stop these people from inciting hatred across Hong Kong's different groups. And I believe that for that, Hong Kong will be a better place in the long run. Just as one example, one financial firm that my company works with is actually being forced to move to Singapore because their investors find Hong Kong to be too risky and unsafe for their investors to come for investor meetings.
It just implied that one country...
For many young people in the city, they see democracy and freedom as the birthright of all mankind. But for China, the freedom that the people of Hong Kong now enjoy is never absolute. What is certain is that it will be a continuous battle that will see very little hope for compromise.
I just cannot imagine anybody would be foolish and stupid enough to actually think there is any future of Hong Kong independence. We do have a young generation, you may call them naive or what, but then some actually think that Hong Kong can survive on its own, which is, I think, is still ridiculous.
It is true that we should not condone those violent acts, but you have to ask the question, what forced those young people to resort to what they have done? There are far more serious and deep-rooted causes behind that. High-handed draconian law will never resolve the issues.